Hello everyone and welcome to the CIT program. My name is Surette and together we're going to be looking at descriptive writing. The easiest place to start is by asking the question, what is descriptive writing? A very obvious answer is that it is describing. So descriptive writing can be used to describe a person, a place, a thing, an event, or a situation. Descriptive writing should include a lot of detail. The more detail we include, the easier it is for our readers to follow along. Detail can also be used to emphasize the point we're trying to make. Descriptive writing is great for creating. We sometimes need our readers to feel a certain thing, or we also need to create a certain image or picture in our readers' minds. A very important factor of descriptive writing is that it should appeal to all 5 senses. And lastly, descriptive writing can be both fiction or non-fiction. So when you're writing your essays, feel free to choose either. 4 factors we're going to be looking at very quickly today are creating a dominant impression, sensory detail, vague versus vivid language, and varying sentence structure. Okay, so looking at creating a dominant impression. The definition of a dominant impression is a quality, mood, or atmosphere that reinforces the writer's purpose. Another way of saying this is the main theme, and it is important that your main theme is present throughout your essay, from beginning to end, and it should be very easy to identify. Number 2, sensory detail. As mentioned before, descriptive writing should appeal to all 5 senses, so that's including sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Secondly, we should be using a lot of literary devices, whether it is symbolism, alliteration, euphemisms, imagery, metaphors or similes, or personification. Try to include as many of these literary devices as possible in your writing. Also then moving on to vocabulary, try to use a variety of vocabulary and try not to use very basic vocabulary words. For example, instead of saying I'm very happy, you can change it up to say something like I am ecstatic. The vocabulary can also reinforce or emphasize your dominant impression. The third factor is vivid versus vague language. If you're thinking about food, you can very simply say that the food was unappetizing. Grammatically, the sentence is perfect, there's nothing wrong with it, but it does not really describe what the food was like. But if we're talking about a turkey dinner, for example, we can say that the pale turkey slice floated limply in a pool of murky fat. That is very, very vivid. A pale piece of meat, no color, it's floating in some type of liquid, and this liquid is murky brown fat. It really doesn't sound appealing, and it creates a great picture. The fourth factor is varying sentence structures, and there are 6 different ways that you can do this. The first one is to embrace short sentences. Sometimes when we are writing academic essays, we feel like we need to write exceptionally long sentences, and this isn't always true. It's specifically important when you've written a whole bunch of sentences that are very dense. Follow up those sentences with simple, short sentences. It's just easier for the reader as it's not so tiring to read. Also use the active voice whenever possible. So remember, this is subject, verb, object, and in this case the subject is performing the action. Alright, then use a variety of transition words whenever possible. So transition words can be used for addition, for emphasizing, for order, comparisons, contrasts, cause and effect, and of course to indicate summary. So use as many transition words as possible. And then cut down on conjunctions by using the semicolon. This is also easier for the reader, and it gives them some time to breathe in. And then lastly, wherever possible, make use of rhetorical questions. So there are 6 different ways which you can try to vary your sentence structures, but don't worry about this too much. Okay, so I've given you two example sentences, or rather paragraphs. The first one is an example of a weak dominant impression, so I'll read it to you. It was hot in Africa. Even with the windows open, the bus was noisy and hot. The walls of the bus were grey. Each seat inside the bus held 2 people. The bus was full of people from different parts of Africa. The bus driver was an old man and was a bad driver. It was noisy, dusty, and there were flies. Some passengers worried that they would be kicked off with their animals. The bus was really crowded, and things got worse as the day went on. There is nothing wrong with this paragraph, but it's just listing a whole bunch of things that's been happening. It doesn't give you much detail, and it's quite boring to read. If you have to think about it and try to identify the dominant impression, it would be heat. It's talking about it being hot in Africa, and a whole bunch of people are sitting on a bus. If we look at the second paragraph, this is an example of a stronger dominant impression. So, one word, Somalia. Full sentence, Somalia. Great start. A plateau-like place situated at the end of the Horn of Africa, about the size of Texas. I remember one day in particular that was different from the rest. The summer sun beat down relentlessly on the parched, chapped earth. The air was hot, almost stagnant. The steamy breeze from the open windows of the bus did little to ease the discomfort. Dust sputtered out from underneath the tires, making tinking sounds against the fender, leaving a cloudy trail nearly a mile in length behind it. People swatted the buzzing flies from their faces. Others shushed their goats, afraid that they would be kicked off for the noise. It was 3:30, and already the bus had reached its full capacity, unusual for this time of day. Little did we know that the hot and dirty bus ride would be the best part of our trip. So again, the dominant impression here is heat. But if we compare the two essays, or paragraphs rather, the second one is including a lot more detail, and it's creating imagery for the reader. Plateau-like, for example, gives you the idea that the land is very flat. Using the expression Horn of Africa, even if you are not familiar with Africa, you should at least know the outline of the continent, and you can kind of imagine that it's to the side. Words like beat down relentlessly and stagnant. Beating down is almost like a kind of punishment, and relentlessly means it doesn't stop. So you can imagine this heat just almost abusing the passengers and not stopping. More descriptive words like parched, chapped, stagnant, air is not moving, people are hot, the earth is cracking. It's really descriptive. Other words like sputtered, tinking sound, buzzing flies, you can hear what's happening with your ears. And in the previous example, it just said that people were afraid that they would get kicked off the bus because of the noise. Now we know what was making the noise. People were shushing their goats, afraid that they would be kicked off. And then the wonderful last sentence, little did we know the hot and dirty bus ride would be the best part of our trip. So by saying little did we know, we can only imagine that things are going to get worse. This paragraph is extremely descriptive, and it's very obvious what the dominant impression is from beginning to end. Okay, so it's your time to write. Please don't be nervous. This is supposed to be fun as well. What I would like you to do is to choose one of the 4 images that I have provided. The images should also be in the articles that you've received. And I'd like you to write a descriptive essay describing a frightening event that is related to any of the essays, or any of the pictures rather. Your essay should be 500 words in length, but I will allow for variance of 20 words on either side. So if we look at the 4 pictures quickly, there's a picture here with a man and an alien. Whatever description you can come up with that. Picture 2, this kind of looks like a wood cabin somewhere. I don't want to give too many ideas. Number 3, some kind of zombie, maybe a zombie apocalypse. It's all up to you. And the 4th picture is just of a frightening girl somewhere in the woods. So choose one of these pictures. You can write a fiction or a non-fiction essay, but make sure that it is a descriptive essay. Last thing I want to say is good luck. Please don't stress too much, and try to remember the 4 factors that we briefly discussed. See you next time. Bye.